the controls that the developers are not have the chance actually to use for implementation when they are dealing with the repeated value binding process. Actually, simply if they are, they are the controls, they do not have actually the capability to display multi values, multi text, multi content. So they are not the ones to be utilized for a repeated value binding. Simple. When you talk about label, a label it is to display only one value. It is a string. That's it. So it cannot be utilized for um, a multi-value binding. A text box it is to display one value. So it is not to be utilized for a repeated value binding and so on. So answer is very simple. Since the control does not have the chance to display more than one value at one time. So it is not the one to be utilized for a repeated value binding. And the vice versa is correct for a single value binding also. We cannot use a multi-value source to display it in just one shot. We may display them one at, let's say, at a phase or at a level. Yes, one by one, we can do that. But all of them to display them when using a single value binding process. So it is not to be displayed when the source actually it has multi values in a text box or a label like control. Simple. So the controls we defined actually we started defining and in this unit they are actually multi-value concerned controls and they are having differences. Clearly the grid view it is to display things table like with capabilities that we see developers they are able to use for a richer experience like the control and the editing. The details view, sorry, the details view it is another control that displays table like content but in a single field, sorry, in a single record wise. Means it would display actually record by record the contents in the sense of the display profile number 1, then profile number 2, then profile number 3, and so on. Instance number 1, instance number 2, and so on. Object number 1, object number 2, object number 3, and so on. With actually other features like the control and the editing. The form view is another control that to be utilized for the same thing to display multi-values, but in a single row or single record, a single field, not field, a single object, single instance, and so on at a shot. Those things actually they are to be displayed, and it would give this form view. It would give actually the control and the editing capabilities also to the developers and as well as to the users. Yes, for sure. But what's the difference in between this form and details view if they are doing the same thing? Actually, the flexibility here, in the sense of the flexibility of this form view, it is to make the difference when we compare to the details view. What does mean flexibility? Flexibility here, it means that the form view would be able to add extra fields, columns separately, and which are actually generating a separate and a different, let's say, form view or let's say appearance at the front end interface when we compare it to the data source. A table, for example, in the data source, it has, for example, 4 or 5 columns. We can add 6th and 7th and 8th column actually because we can do that since we are using the form view as a control. It is to be customized. It is to be customized based on a template that the user or the developer, sorry, can look forward to send it to the front end user. Flexibility. Great. So exactly what we were discussing the grid view. It's a context of a table-like display, but with extra features to be given to the end users to work with a richer experience. Means if we compare it to a table, it would actually give us a chance to see this is a table, but this is not a table in background. This is a grid view. Why? Because we are having actually it's not why. The difference is that we are having more functionalities, more actually richer experience to be given to the end users, and this is as the wish of the developer. Means they are to be controlled. The developer can utilize and cannot utilize, depends. Means those functionalities they are not a must to be utilized. The grid view, when used to populate the data in the front end interface, does it by force means that the users have to use all the functionalities. Answer is false. No, no. It is as the wish and as the service requires. Extra functionalities will be added and integrated with the final display. So here we are seeing simple table. We are not seeing extra function. We are not seeing the paging. We are not seeing the selection and the editing, and what. We are not seeing anything. It's a simple table. So functionalities are not utilized in this example only. Which example? This one. And the implementation of a grid view to populate a multi-value binded, actually a multi-value to be binded and displayed in a grid view. For the sample here in front of us, we are seeing a link, a path, a connection to a data source. Here it is. We are starting the connection with an open. If you remember the direct data access and the let's say the data reader and the data set functionality we utilize it while we are using the data set here. We are going to keep the connection alive as long as we need it. Then actually after the connection has been started, we are passing the command, we are generating the command, sorry. And then after we let's say executing the command, somehow we are executing the command. Yes, we are just saying that the command is going to be populated in our browser's cache. Here it is. We are going to use a data set to read the data from the data set. It is to read the data from the cache, from the local memory. The data set, it is not to go to the back-end solution. No, it would use the local browser's cache. So this data set variable UDS, user defined, it is going to be utilized to populate what has been set as a reader, sorry, as an adapter. This adapter is going to be populated with the data from the local cache, and this local cache is reading the thing from the entity, the user info, which is the table utilized to populate to read the content. Select star from user, the query, it is reading the content of this user info entity. So okay, this is the block of process. We are going to make the bind now, the display. So two let's say approaches. The property data source. The data source, where is it? It's the data source. It's the data set, sorry. Yes. This is the data source. Okay, let's call the bind now, the method responsible for bind and displaying data bind. Where this data source it is going to be, to where it would be actually linked to the grid view 1, and the data bind, this method for populating, to populate what? The grid view 1. What is this grid view 1? It's a grid that has been put inside the design view. The design view in the page. In this example, display data. In this example, display data. You will find something like this at the end. In this regard, any questions? We did that actually in the lab also, but even though I insist here that if you have any questions, you may raise it right now. Okay, we continue. Grid views, they are also they actually display multi-values for sure. When we compare to the form view, it would give us actually the flexibility chance. We are actually, as developers, we are going to be utilizing the grid view with the flexibility feature. We are able to add columns. We are able to modify columns. We are able to edit, means we are going to delete columns. We can do that, absolutely. It is given the chance. Okay, to generate a new column, we just use in the ASP block the column or columns tag, and we use the auto generate columns. It is to be utilized actually as a property. Automatically, it will be actually utilized. So the additional adding a new field in the grid view, it is for sure possible using the grid view. But here, remember that the grid view, when we compare it to the form view, the grid view displays multi-values, not a single record, not a single row. No, it displays multi records, multi rows at a time. So still it is different than the form view. It's not the same. So automatically it would actually take the shape, the architecture of the entity in background, the table or whatever the source we are linked to this, or yeah, it is binned to this grid view. Automatically it will be actually displayed. For example, we have two tables. Table has 4 columns. Another table has 7 columns. We link table number 1 to grid number 1, grid view number 1, and we link table 2, which is with 7 columns, to grid view number 2. The grid views, they are the same control. So will be there any problem? No. The grid view 1 will adjust itself to display 4 fields automatically, and the grid view 2 will adjust itself to display 7 fields from the table 2. So automatically would be adjusted to display the number of columns, which is the architecture of the entity bin to, that has been bin to. Great. Properties, actually, properties, and let's say here we can say they are types more than to be properties describing the columns that we can add them. Just immediately, I'm gonna just describe one, and based on that, you understand. Here we can add a button as a new field in a grid view. Means we are going to add a column, and the column will be actually displaying buttons. The button is to be utilized to edit, to delete, to update a record. So the button will be automatically generated and it will be displayed in front of each record in a separate column inside the grid view. So the same scenario would happen for the other, let's say here, types of contents to be displayed in a new record. So those are types describing the records to be, sorry, the fields to be added. The fields, the columns means. Okay, the customization of the new fields, it's not to follow only the types available from the .NET environment. Yet we can actually make a user-defined customized field by setting a new header, specific header that we can the developer can specify, and the content actually can be a mixture of contents. The contents of the fields, it can be a mixture of contents, can be actually like we saw here, the types we are utilizing can be something customized by the developer himself. Means can have a new value, new value. It's not something that would add a function or a control. It can be a value that the developer specifies. Yes. Okay, the customization of the new columns is still it is possible, and here we are talking about the style and the formatting. Style and formatting means actually the content, how it would like look like actually, because a new field it might be a new field, it might be a hyperlink, a new field here. See the type, it might be a hyperlink. So a hyperlink has a specific way to be displayed. So it can be formatted. Can be formatted. We can control the underlining property. We can control the color. We can control the shape, the size, and so on. The police, whatever. We can control all. So those are properties to be set. to be set accordingly. Again, those are specific functions to be called. Those are properties specifically to be called for specific styling activities. Style. The style, when we say the style, uh, means we are talking about the color, the size, the font, the police, the whatever, the background color, the front color, the foreground color, all the styles that you know, all the CSS facts we can use. But those are ready-made functions, so you just properties, just you call them. Okay. Or what we described as types and as styles at the end, and functions to be utilized to add new records, or the grid view itself by its functionalities. It is to be utilized in a rich environment, which is an IDE. Mainly all what we described, they are .NET solutions, and they are from the Microsoft only. And since they are complementary, using a specific, let's say, IDE like the Visual Studio to implement such solution, 100% will give us actually it would give the developers a rich experience when they deal with the controls integration. The IDE, integrated development environment. IDE example is Visual Studio integrated development environment. Why? Because we are going to utilize ready-made functionalities in a graphical way without writing any new code. You just utilize them, drag and drop, so on. And the rich experience meant here is that you are going to have extra functions due to this environment or those environments only. Rich experience means you are going to use ready-made functions to give you the services you need without time waste, without headache and extra effort to be done by the developer, I mean, meant here. From the activities to do, those are this is an example of a format and interface. This is a graphical interface that to be utilized for format and only. So actually, we'll continue from the selection of a record. Actually, all of this we saw last class. This is an example of a record. Yeah. Okay. This is a field. This is a field that here actually this is an ASP content. It is an ASP content. What is this control? It's a button. Simple. What is this control? It's a button. And the event here, whatever the button is to be actually utilized for to adopt an event to be utilized as an event handler, which is the click. The event handler to be adopted with a button is the click mainly. In a programmatic way, actually, we can use different views, different, let's say, controls. Okay, the functionalities that you can add into a grid view, all the functionalities we described earlier here. Let me come back. Still, yes, here they are. The page and the sort of the selection or the selecting and the editing, all the updating, editing. When you say editing, we say updating means all of them. They are functions that you can adopt on top of the grid view. So this is an example of a grid view with a control. Here actually we are having an addition of a new record, the insert, and we are having the page functionality, whatever. This is a simple, actually, a simple property to activate from the IDE. This is simple. Okay, see you next class. But if you hear your name just now, you say yes, please. If you hear your name, you say yes.